So as we continue, I want to stop and make a distinction real quick. Everything that we're talking about is economics in the short run. So we're actually looking at where is profit maximization in the short run, decisions. And the reason we're dealing with the short run is actually there was a famous economist that made a quote, something along the lines of, well, we operate in the short run because in the long run we're all dead. Well, that's part of it, but the other aspect about it is, in the long run, we have no fixed costs. So what are fixed costs? Fixed costs are those like the payments on a tractor, or the payments on land, or your salaries and things like that. Well, in the short run, in that production cycle, on a 1-year production cycle, or just in the short run production cycle, those fixed costs stay the same. We don't change them. The only thing that does change is the variable cost. But in the long run, we actually can change those fixed costs. So, for example, if we decide to build a barn, in the long run, we might decide to build a barn to increase production capacity. Well, that changes that short run aspect. But we can make these long-term decisions like, should we buy land, which is typically considered a fixed cost? Well, it now becomes a variable cost because we can buy and sell land and we can change our production strategy, whereas in the short run, we really can't. So we actually focus on the short run in the beginning part of production economics before we get into the long run. So we're just going to go ahead and stay with the short run. But I wanted to make that distinction that we're dealing with the short run, that all these concepts that we're dealing with are dealing with the economics of the short run decision. So far we've covered the physical aspects and the cost aspects of production. So we talked about the production function in the beginning of chapter 6. Then we went in and we talked about the totals, the averages, and the marginal cost curves that we all deal with in the short run. So what are we missing now? We're trying to get to profit maximization. That's what we've been talking about this whole time, is we've been trying to get to what is a profit maximizing level of output and even input. Where should we be producing at? How much input should we be using to produce? So what are we missing to get there? Or we're missing, how much money are we going to make? We know how much it's going to cost us, and we need to know how much we're going to make. So next we need to look at this marginal revenue and average revenue. So what is marginal revenue? Marginal revenue, well, remember, marginal means what? It means change. So this marginal revenue is actually the change in total revenue from producing one more unit. So the marginal revenue is equal to change in total revenue divided by change in output. So it answers the question, how much more revenue will I receive from selling one more good? Now stop and think about this. If the market price for corn is, say, $3.50 per bushel, if you sell one more bushel, how much are you going to receive? Well, $3.50, right? It's a pretty simple concept. Well, we can get into the math behind it, the change in total revenue divided by the change in output, but it's going to yield that $3.50 either way. Now, what if the market price for hay is, say, $200 a ton for alfalfa, good high quality alfalfa, in a place like Texas where they don't really produce very much alfalfa? Let's say that hay is $200 a ton, or even $250 a ton. Let's say it's $250 a ton. And you sell hay and alfalfa hay in Texas, and it's $250 a ton, and you sell one more ton. How much are you going to receive? Well, $250, right? So this marginal revenue is asking the question, how much more will you receive from selling one more unit of each good? And what I'm hinting at is that whenever we're dealing with agriculture, we're operating under these conditions of perfect competition. Now, we're not always exactly under perfect competition, but we're pretty close. Now, let's just assume that we're dealing with perfect competition here. Marginal revenue under perfect competition equals the price of the commodity. It equals that market price. So I asked you about alfalfa, and I asked you about corn, and I said, well, what was the market price? And how much are you going to receive from selling one more unit? Well, I said you're going to receive market price. And the reason why is because there are so many buyers and sellers in a perfectly competitive market that everyone is a price taker. Therefore, you always sell at the market price. So therefore, in perfect competition, marginal revenue equals that price, equals that market price. So, if you sell one more good in a perfectly competitive market, what will you receive in revenue? Well, you're going to receive that market price, right? The price of the good. So that's something we don't even really need to concern ourselves too much with this particular formula whenever it comes to marginal revenue. And the reason why is because we know that in perfect competition, the market or the marginal revenue is always equal to the price. And we can go through scenario after scenario or example after example of it, but we know that it's always going to equal price. And the reason it's equaling price is because there are so many buyers, and so many sellers in this perfectly competitive market that everyone is this price taker. And since you are a price taker and you cannot set the price, the marginal revenue is equal to the price of the commodity. So let's go through a scenario real quick. You increase production from 11.6 units of output per hour to 12 units of output per hour. And the market price for each good is $45. So at 11.6 units per hour, you earn $522 per hour. We're taking this 45 times this 11.6. Then at 12 units per hour, you earn actually 500, and there should be a 5 right there. Sorry about the typo, but you earn $540 per hour in revenue. So what we're doing is we're taking 12 times 45 up here. So marginal revenue is equal to that change in revenue divided by that change in output. We take the total revenue of $540 minus this 522, and we have a change in revenue of $18. Then we have a change in output. So we have this 12 divided by 11.4, and it equals 0.4. Or sorry, this 11.6 and equals 0.4. So we take the marginal revenue of $18 per hour divided by the change in total revenue of 18 divided by the change in output of 0.4, and it equals $45. And it's the same as the market price. So we know that in perfect competition, the market price is equal to the marginal revenue. And like I said, just go think about that corn example of we sell one more bushel of corn at $3.50. What's our price? What's our marginal revenue? It's always going to be that market price. And we can run through the math over and over again, and it's always going to equal that market price. But I want to caution you, and I want to throw out this little caveat. This is under perfect competition that we're talking about. We're talking about perfect competition in which there's so many buyers and sellers that no one person can dictate the market. No one person can set the price. If we get into imperfect competition, where we're talking about somebody who is not necessarily a price taker, this changes a little bit. This changes where marginal revenue does not always necessarily just equal price. So marginal revenue equals price in perfect competition, and that's the thing to keep in mind. But in this chapter, we're only dealing with the conditions of perfect competition. So for this chapter, we know that marginal revenue is going to equal price.